What was it like to be in such a musical family?
Uh, it was totally wonderful, because I had a couple of mentors, my mother and my father, and they supported whatever I wanted to do musically. So, the first thing, growing up in I think it was the fifth, maybe the sixth grade, my music teacher in elementary school made us take violin lessons. Oh man, that was a trip. Because I had heard, all the kids in the neighborhood was talking about the strings on a violin were made out of cat guts, and that just threw me a curve, Why did they put strings on a violin made out of cat guts? Yeah. So I didn't like violin at all. So do you see this sign that says waiting on my screen?
No, I don't know. I don't see that. Waiting?
Yeah, it says waiting, and it's I don't know what's going on.
Well, I can hear you and I can see you, and we're doing it, so I think we're okay.
Okay, I'll just leave it alone because I got a new phone, man, and I just don't understand it at all. Takes me a while.
No, I understand, but I'm glad you could make it out. Thank you. Are you safe at home, I hope?
Oh yeah, I'm with me and my wife are here.
Good. And you're staying healthy?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to stay as healthy as I can. Just growing old gracefully, I guess. Can't stop the aging process.
Well, thank God. It's nice to be able to be with people who love you.
You're right.
So you don't still have that violin? That's long gone, I would imagine.
That violin, man, I lasted a while, but I had to give it up. So
why do you think your teacher asked everybody to play the violin?
Because that was the easiest thing for a young child in elementary school. See, I was in maybe the sixth grade, and that would give us a musical knowledge, something about music, and a knowledge about an instrument. Of course, she was partial to the violin because that's what she played.
Yeah, that would make sense. No, didn't you play saxophone and trombone also?
Well, yes, I did. What happened is that when I got out of service, I went to college, and I knew that I wanted to study music. And about the only thing that I could do musically at that time in the early 60s was to be a band director. And how can you teach a kid to play an instrument if you can't play it yourself? So I took it upon myself to learn how to play what the other instruments was about. The woodwind instruments, the brass instrument. Of course, I played trombone through high school and college, and I knew about the brass instruments. So I learned all the instruments that I could, for the simple reason is, because I was going to try and teach kids how to play those instruments. How can you teach a kid if you can't play it yourself?
That makes perfect sense. Now, how did you get from Corpus Christi to HT, to Houston-Tillotson?
Well, when I was in high school, a senior in high school, I used to go get a hamburger at lunch about 2 or 3 blocks from the campus because I couldn't stand the food in the cafeteria. So I would go get me a hamburger, and I would pass by this house every day. This guy would be sitting on the porch, and of course he was a musician. He was a tenor saxophone player, and he would be playing music that I hadn't heard before. He'd be listening to Charlie Parker, and I'd slow up every day, not wanting to offend him by asking him what that was, So one day he stopped me. He said, "Say, little dude, come here." So I went over there. He said, "I see you slowing up every day when you pass here. Do you like what you hear?" I said, "Yeah." "What is that? What kind of music is that?" And he told me that was progressive jazz. His name was Ponte Hayward, and he was from Austin, Texas. So he said, "Yeah, that's what they call progressive jazz." I say, "Progressive jazz?" Yeah. I had never heard anything like that before. And of course, that was Charlie Parker. You're talking about 1957. So I made it my business to go over to his front porch at lunch every day when I was in school. And we sit and listen to Charlie Parker and the jazz records. And he told me that if you want to learn something about this music, go to Sam Houston in Austin, Texas. Of course, little did he know that Sam Houston was no longer there. Sam Houston College was an all HBC college here in Austin, and it was on 13th and now I-35. And they closed it and merged with Tillerson College, which is over on 11th Street.
Yep.
They merged in 1952. Well, of course, this was like 57, and he didn't know that. But when I got here expecting to go to Sam Houston, I found out that it was Houston Tillerson. So I enrolled anyway, because there was a plethora of great Black jazz musicians here, man, in Austin at that time. And so I fell right in. I thought I was in the right place, which I was. And that's how I got started here in Austin.
That's amazing. I want to hear more about the Black jazz musicians who were here when you got here.
Oh, man, it was a whole bunch of them here. Dewey Redmond, who is Joshua Redmond's father, was the band director in Bastrop, Texas at that time.
Wow.
And Bobby Bradford was here, who later went to play with Ornette Coleman. Let's see, who else was here? Fathead used to come here all the time. Martin Banks had left here and moved to New York. Kenny Dorham had left here and moved to New York. So there were hordes and hordes of Black musicians here. And they had we formed a group when I was in college called the Steppers. And it was all Black musicians. There were a lot of Black clubs here then because we couldn't go anywhere else. We couldn't go on the West Side to any places in Austin. And you're talking about 1959, 60, 61. And it kind of changed in 61 and 62. It kind of changed. They removed some of the restrictions from going to the clubs and things. And but that's how it got started, man. And it was a horde of Black musicians, a horde of Black clubs here in the late 50s and early 60s.
Amazing. Dr. Polk, would you mind, just for everybody, just for our memory, can you name some of the Black clubs that were here in that time period?
Let's see. The Flamingo Club was run by a man by the name of, we call him Dad Jones. He would have a jam session, jazz jam session every Wednesday night. Was college night, where he would let the young college musicians play. And every Sunday he had a jam session. And there was Snooky's Lounge. There was, I can't remember Delmonico's was a club on 6th Street. There was another club on 7th Street. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was clubs all over the place, man. Black clubs all over the place here. A lot of them I can't remember now. That's been too long ago. Well,
you were welcomed with open arms, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We were all welcomed with open arms there. And the jazz musicians, especially the young musicians coming up then, got a chance to hone their skills. I can remember one date at the jazz session that they had at the Flamingo Club, which was located on Chicon and 12th Street, right off of 12th Street. And they would have a jazz session there every Sunday afternoon from 4 to 8. And we would hone our skills. I will never forget, this would stick with me for the rest of my life. I had learned the song Stella by Starlight. And the older guys would allow young jazz musicians to get up and play. So you, of course, being a young jazz musician, I wanted other people to see me and I wanted to impress them. So one Sunday I went up there and asked him, I said, "Can I sit in?" He said, "Yeah, what do you want to play?" And of course I had practiced Stella by Starlight as a ballad. And he said, "Guys," he turned to the guys on the stage and said, "Guys, little brother wants to play Stella by Starlight." He said, "Come on, little brother, get up here and play it." So I said, okay. So I was ready to play Stella by Starlight as a ballad in B flat. So he said, "Okay, little brother wants to play Stella by Starlight. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I said, "Oh, Lord." He kicked off a tempo that I had been used to playing it out of ballad. So he stopped the song and said, "Little brother, when you learn this song, you can come back and play it." He said, But in order to learn the song, you got to learn it in all tempos. So I went back to the college, to the campus, and I practiced Stella by Starlight. Boy, I could play it at a tempo 200. So I went back the next Sunday, ready and ran to play Stella by Starlight, any tempo they wanted. So he said, you ready to play Stella by Starlight, little brother? I said, of course I am. So he said, little brother wants to turn around to the other jazz musicians and said, little brother wants to play Stella by Starlight. He said, okay, Stella by Starlight in E flat. I said, oh, Lord, because I had practiced it in B flat. So they threw me for a loop. He said, when you learn a song, learn it in all 12 keys. Come back when you can play it. I said, oh my goodness. So I never did go back and ask to play again. That's a true story.
Oh my goodness. That's a great story, Dr. Polk. I'm so glad that he encouraged you and as well as not discouraged you, you know?
Yeah, he encouraged me. He said, when you learn how to play it in all 12 keys, you come back. Because he said, that's the way we do it. If you learn a song, you learn it in all 12 keys. Because, and that really came in handy with me playing behind vocalists, because vocalists pick keys that are comfortable to them, right, not the original key that it was recorded in. And they could play it in any key. So you got to be ready to play whatever key the vocalist wants to play it in. And that was a valuable tool, a valuable lesson that I learned early on that I used my entire life, still use it to this day.
And that's something I'm sure you impress upon your many, many students as well, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
How did you learn to transcribe sheet music? How did that happen? That's a great skill.
Well, you know, that it came in handy because I took it upon myself to learn how to play the various different instruments, and the various different instruments were in different keys. So in order to be able to read, learn what those instruments were, you had to learn the different keys that those instruments played in, and learn how to transcribe and write for those different instruments. You would be in another key, the same song, but in other keys. And that came on the heels of me learning how to play songs in different keys, because the instruments, and when I started writing, and this is a true story about writing. One of the key requirements for our graduation at Houston Tillerson under Nathaniel G. Williams was that we do 5 vocal pieces and 5 instrumental pieces that we had to conduct and obtain. So I went to him and asked him if it would be all right if I wrote my 5 pieces, my 5 choral pieces and my 5 instrumental pieces. And he said, yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead. Whereas the rest of my classmates, senior classmates, would go down to what was then J.R. Reed's music store and buy 5 instrumental pieces and 5 vocal pieces. Well, I guess I was too stingy to do that. But I was interested in learning how to write for instruments too. So I wrote 5 pieces for vocals, 5 pieces for instruments. And that began my instrumental writing orchestration for different instruments. And after I had those 5 pieces, I said, well, I might as well continue doing this and compile a book. So that's what I did. I compiled a book for an octet. My first group was an octet. I used 5 horns and 3 rhythms. So, and I use a trumpet, tenor, and trombone. What did I say? Trombone, trumpet, and a baritone sax. So I had 5 horns and 3 rhythms, piano, bass, and drums. I didn't use a guitar at that time, but that started that group, which I named James Polk and the Brothers. And we went up to that same place that I was telling you about, Flamingo, and the proprietor of the place gave us every Sunday to play a jazz jam session from 4 to 8. So that's what we did for years. And that's how I began my orchestration and writing. And it proved to be a valuable tool because I still do it to this day. I still write songs for this day. I have a group now that we haven't played in the past year because of the coronavirus, but it is called Centerpiece. And right now, as I sit, I have over 700 arrangements for a sextet right now. So that's something I enjoy doing, have enjoyed it all my life, and I still do it. It keeps me busy every day, keeps my mind on music every day, even though we're not playing any gigs. I still do a lot of writing.
Well, I'm
Make
sure you
sense?
can't wait to get out there and use those arrangements. That's for sure.
Man, since this coronavirus has been open, I think when it started, I had maybe 650 or 660, but I have over 700 now. So that lets you know how many I have written over this past year.
That's at least once a week.
Do what now? Once a week?
That's about one arrangement a week. Now we've been almost a year in this.
Oh yeah, just about. I average just about that.
Wow. Now I know that the James Polk and the brothers toured as well as played at the Flamingo Club. Is that correct?
Yes.
You toured all over the place.
Well, Louisiana and Texas was our main area that we traveled. We didn't go out of state, and well, we went to Louisiana, but Louisiana and Texas was that. We didn't go elsewhere, you know. But that kept us busy, and I even bought a tour bus for us to travel in, and that was fantastic. Even had a bus driver, but none of the band members had to drive, so we were cool. That was a lot of fun, man.
I'm sure. That's did you make it as far down as New Orleans?
No, farthest we got was Lake Charles, I think it was. We never did make it down to New Orleans.
All right. You had a bus driver and you had a bus. That's riding in style, I think.
Yeah, I had a bus driver where none of the band members would have to drive, see?
Sure.
Because we want to be refreshed by the time we got there and started playing. So that was a lot of fun.
Now, how did you get from James Polk and the brothers to the other group that you started called Jamaad?
Well, James Polk and the brothers was a group I started as a result of writing those arrangements when I was a senior in college. So that's how James Polk and the brothers started. And we rehearsed for 7 or 8 months before we even took our first gig. And after that, a lot of the guys moved on, and a couple of them passed away. And so then, without having a group to play, Alex Cope, who played tenor saxophone and who I did a lot of work with, just Alex and myself, tenor saxophone and keyboard players. We played a lot of the hotels here in Austin and places like that, a lot of private parties. So it was suggested that, and then after Mordecai and Joppa opened the Elephant, we decided that, hey, well, maybe we should try to put a group together. That's what Alex decided. So we did, with Alex, myself, A.D. Mannion on drums, Dave Morgan on bass, and me on keyboard, and let's see, Randy Zimmerman and Martin Banks. That was the group. So, and then we called it Jamaad, and the name came for the first initials of all the members of the group. J was mine, James, A was Alex, M was Martin, A was A.D., and D was Dave Morgan. And then later on, after we had formed the group, see, we started with the quintet, and then Randy joined the group. Of course, we didn't put Randy's name on there. It would have been Jamaad R. if we had, but we didn't add, because we was already established as Jamaad. But that's how that got started.
And did you played mostly in Austin, or did you tour with Jamaad as well?
No, we played mostly in Austin and San Antonio and Dallas. That was about the extent of our travel. We didn't do much with that group, not travel-wise.
Sure. But then all of a sudden, was it, 1978 or so, your phone rang, is that correct? It kind of changed your life?
I did what now?
Your phone, didn't it ring in 1978? And
yeah.
Kind of changed your life, didn't it?
Yes, it did, totally. Because see, I was playing, we had a group here in Austin called James Polk and Company, which encompassed Steve Miller on drums, Roscoe Beck on bass, Bill Ginn played the second piano, Mitch Watkins played guitar, and the guy started with us by the name of Larry Williams, who played tenor saxophone. And then after Larry Williams, it was Rob Lockhart, who left and went to school at Eastman, and then eventually wound up in California. And then we had Paul Ostermeyer, and that group became known as James Polk and Company. And then we stayed around here, and we worked a couple of nights a week at which was not the Blue Parrot, but what was the other one next door? I can't remember the name of it. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was right next door to the Blue Parrot. And we stayed there for a number of years until we decided that we would go down to San Antonio. And we had Bob, I can't remember Bob's last name, but he had a recording studio down there. And he told us to come down and record it as much as we want to. He would record us free of charge. We didn't have to pay. So we did. We went down there and we recorded a whole lot of songs, of which he kept on file. Well, after I got the call from Ray Charles, well, let me back up a little bit. Roscoe Beck and I had traveled to Los Angeles 1 week. And we went there with the intention of trying to impress some of the people to be and get a recording contract with the group James Polk and Company, because we had gone over to Bob's place in San Antonio and he would record us for free. And he had a lot of stuff. So we took the tapes and we went to Los Angeles, which we stayed there a week, Roscoe Beck and myself, shopping the tape. And we got a few nibbles. And on the top of that, we were playing at not the Blue Parrot, I almost came to, but anyway, we played there twice a week on Monday nights and Sundays. So then we got a call from this guy, Chrysalis Records, who said he wanted to come listen to us. So the guy came down to Austin and listened to us. And, but the thing about it, I had gotten a call from Ray Charles' office a week before then. And he asked me if I wanted to take the gig. I said, well, yeah, I'm interested, but I have to talk with my guys first. So we would meet and discuss the different things once a week with the group. So when we met that week, I told the guys, I said, listen, I have a chance to go on the road with Ray Charles, but I won't go if you guys would decide to let's all move to Los Angeles. I will find a house for us to live in for a year. I will pay the rent up for a year because I had just sold a house and I had some money in the bank, a few $1,000s in the bank. I say I will pay the rent up for a year where we don't have to worry about paying rent for a year. And the only somebody in the group was married then was Steve Metter. I say, Steve, if you want to bring your wife out there, you can. And he had, I think, 2 little girls. I say, I will pay the rent for all of us for a year. In a year's time, we don't have to worry about paying rent. And I think as far as traveling around, that I realized that if you go anywhere as a group, you stand a better chance to make it as a group rather than going as individuals. So if we go to the LA as a group, we will create some waves because we are good. And, Harvey Mason had just brought a group from Hawaii named Sea Wind. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I haven't.
But they moved from Hawaii he had brought them to Los Angeles, and they were an immediate hit. I say, they don't play any better than we do. Why can't we do that? So the guys refused to go. They didn't want to go. They didn't want to leave. I say, well, it's hard for me to turn down this gig with Ray Charles because he's offered me a once-in-a-lifetime gig. So I tell you what, I'm going to go out on the road with Ray Charles. And so all the guys agreed to go. And this was like in August. So the guys agreed to let me go. He said, but you be back here in October. I say, well, okay, I'll try and see what's happening. So I went out on the road with Ray Charles. And as it turned out, in October, when October came, the Ray Charles band was going to Brazil for a month. I said, shit, I want to go to Brazil. I've never been to Brazil. These guys can wait when I come back. They've been without me now since September. And this was October, getting to be the 1st of November. They can be without. So they wanted me to go on the road for a month and then come back. I said, no, I'm going to stay. So I did that. And I stayed out on the road. And we came back to Austin. That was 1979, I think. And then we came back. No, that was 1978. The tour ended and I got back to Austin on New Year's Day, 1979. Well, then they called me. One of the guys called me from the group, and they had eventually, they were still playing. And of course, Bill Gann was playing in the group by then. So they called me and we met over at Mitch Watkins' house. And when I walked in, the guys told me, we don't want to play with you no more. Well, I said, well, no, if you don't want to play with me, I understand that. So they were hot behind the collar that I went out on the road with Ray Charles and didn't come back. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, do me one big favor. And they said, what is that? And they were still going under the name of James Polk and Company. I said, take my name out of the front of the band because this is no longer James Polk and Company. So they did that, and that's how they became Passenger.
No kidding.
That's an
incredible story, Dr. Polk.
That's true, every bit of
it. Wow. That whole thing saying, I'm going to go to Los Angeles. Do you want to come with me? And they say no. And then you go off on this incredible experience with Ray Charles. And then you come back and they don't want to play with you anymore.
That's right.
I find that incredulous.
That's a true story, man.
So, wow. So what happened from there? I mean, so you're in Austin and you played with Ray Charles and then.
Well, after that, I decided that I would move to Los Angeles because I hadn't told Ray that I was not going to come back. I wanted to find out what the guys wanted to do. If the guys had said, okay, we're going to continue play, I would have told Ray Charles, look, I'm not coming back. I'm staying here in Austin. But the guys fired me. They got rid of me. So I said, there's no need me turning this gig down with Ray Charles. I didn't tell him when I left that I wasn't coming back. So I decided right then and there that I would get me a U-Haul truck. I would move to Los Angeles and stay with the group because that was a steady gig. And I learned a lot from Ray Charles. And it turned out to be a good decision because after that, well, when I was out the first year with Ray Charles, that from August through January, I did one arrangement. And because I was still writing in, I never stopped writing. I did an arrangement of Herbie Hancock's, what's her, Birdland, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
No, whatever that was. I did an arrangement for Ray Charles, and I asked the band leader, Ray Charles' band leader at the time. We were in Paris at the Holiday Inn Hotel, where when we went out on the road, we rehearsed usually once a week. I don't care where we were. Ray was going to rehearse the band. And we rehearsed in the lobby, in the basement of that hotel, the Holiday Inn. And I asked the band leader at that time, who was Clifford Solomon, I said, do you mind if we listen to this arrangement that I just finished? He said, not at all. He said, we'll have to wait till we get through rehearsing Ray's songs. I said, that's fine. So we did. When we finished rehearsing Ray's song, he told the band, say, Pope wants us to play this arrangement. He just finished and he wants to hear it. So little did I know that Ray was standing out in the hall of the basement and he heard us rehearsing that. So when we finished, he came in and he said, Clifford Solomon was the band leader's name at the time. He said, Saul, who did that? And Clifford said, the new boy, talking about me. So Ray Charles bought that arrangement. He put that in the book. So we played it from then on when I was there. So he bought that. That was the first arrangement I sold to Ray Charles.
Amazing.
And it was a bunch of them after that.
Well, that's really incredible. And I know at least one or two of them were nominated for a Grammy. Is that correct?
Yeah. I did. The first arrangement that I did for him personally was a song that's called Ain't It So? And we were out on the road that first year. So Ray called me to his office, and I said, oh, what did I do wrong? So he called me to his hotel where we went in Scottsdale, Arizona, the last week on the tour. And he sent for me, so I went to see him. And he gave me a tape. He said, I want you to do an arrangement on this. And it was him playing Ain't It So? And it just him on the piano. He said, I want you to do an arrangement on this. I said, okay. So we were in Scottsdale, Arizona for a week? Maybe I should say 2 weeks. It was probably a week. But at any rate, maybe it was 2 weeks. Any rate, I did the arrangement. And I gave him the arrangement, and he told me he was going back to LA. And that was the first year I was out with him, 1979. I was coming home. And so, no, was that 13? I was 78 or 79. Anyway, I did the arrangement and gave it to him. He told me, he said, well, I'm going to record this when I get back to LA. And of course I wasn't there, and he recorded it. And he put it on a record. And I didn't even know it, until we went back on the road the next year, and he put the song in the book. So we played it every night when we were out there. Whenever he had a gig, we played that song. And I didn't even know that it got nominated for a Grammy until somebody told me, and I called him. I said, Brother Ray, did Ain't It So get nominated for a Grammy? He said, yeah. I said, why didn't you tell me? He said, hell, I just forgot it. So that was the first song I got nominated for a Grammy with Ray Charles. And then the second one was a song called Ain't It So? Now, I wish you were here tonight. Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, I have so many questions, Dr. Polk. How did you learn your Hammond, B3 Hammond chops?
Well, okay, it all began when I was in school at Houston Tillerson. There was a guy in that same club, the Flamingo Club, what it was named, and it was run by Dad Jones. Every summer, a guy would come here the whole summer and play Hammond B3 organ. His name was Andy Anderson, who was the band director in Port Arthur, I believe, at the time. He would come here and stay the whole summer playing organ at that club, or every Wednesday night, I think it was. And I heard him then, and I said, that sounds like something I want to learn how to play. And then there was a guy stationed at Fort Hood. I can't remember his name right off the bat, but he played organ, and he was from Baltimore, and he was stationed at Fort Hood. And then he sent for his organ and had it shipped down here. And he came and started playing at that same club, the Flamingo Club. Well, every time he played, I would go sit there and listen to him. This was before I started playing. And I would ask him, I said, well, what do you do? How do you play this thing? And that sound was so intriguing to me, I just had to learn how to play that thing. So he was the first guy that really sat down and explained how to play the B3 organ. And from that, I went to what is called J.R. Reed's music store down on Congress then and bought a Hammond B3 organ. And I set it up at my house, and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, and I learned how to play it. So that's how it got started.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, what does this music mean to you? You've spoken so powerfully about coming to Austin in the early 60s and having trouble or not being allowed to go on the West Side. And then you were one of the pioneers of opening an integrated band, and then even the work that you do. Beyond all that, what does this music mean to you? And how do you describe what it is for others who are looking to discover it?
Well, to make it simple, to put it in very simple terms, it's my lifeline. I've been doing this all my life. My mother was a pianist. My dad was a pianist. We had a piano in my home. My grandmother gave us a piano, and we put it in our home. And I would sit and listen to my dad, and my uncle would come by. He was a guitarist, and he played piano too. So I was surrounded by music. I didn't have a choice. It was like, you're going to do music. So I didn't think of anything else but that. So when I got to, like I said, I came to Austin because of Ponte Haywood, who was originally from San Antonio, Texas, but he lived in Austin. He was a tenor saxophone player. he was full of music. And so I was surrounded by music all the time. It was like I didn't have a choice. When I came here, there were a lot of Black musicians on the campus. There was a little jazz group called the Steppers, which was Bobby Bradford was on the campus then. That's Carmen Bradford's daddy. He was here then, and we wound up being roommates. My first roommate that I had, was a drummer. So I was surrounded with musicians all the time. So it was like I didn't have a choice. I didn't think of anything else. I didn't want to do anything else. So I did exactly what I wanted to do. So that's how it came about.
Now tell me how did you get back to Austin after you were touring with the band, with the Ray Charles band? How did you get back to Austin?
Well, this is very true also. I was with Ray, and I think I was with Ray I quit for a couple of years. I was with him like maybe 4 years at first, and then I quit for a couple of years, and then I went back. And then when it got to the point on the road where you would wake up at some hotel or motel, we stayed in motels mostly, you would wake up, you didn't know where you were, you didn't know what time it was, you didn't know what city you were in. And so these things, and it was very confusing. And so I decided, I say, well, this is getting to be a little bit much. So I think that I probably had enough. So I stopped touring, but I still worked with him in the studio for another 3 or 4 years, maybe. Just he and I. That's when we put out a lot of songs. We put out I Wish You Were Here Tonight, and I worked with him with several different recording artists who we put out several albums with just he and myself. We worked in the studio, just the two of us. And that went on for several years. So I just quit touring, that's all. I didn't quit working with him per se. And then I decided that I had had enough of Los Angeles when it got to be like about 1,100 people were moving into LA per week. I say, well, and then music, to get a gig, it became so superfluous, and then the people became so, artificial. It became like that, and I said, well, maybe I've had enough of LA, so I'll move back to Austin. And I was glad I did. I don't regret it.
How was your reception back? I know last time we were talking, you were in that Mitch Watkins room, and you guys were moving on, and they were moving on. And how coming back, did you find people you could play with and music you could make with people who appreciated and valued what you did?
Well, when I moved back January 1988, and I played some gigs. First gigs were just trio gigs. Myself, Dave Morgan, I think, and A.D. Manning. We played a few gigs over on Barton Creek, Barton Springs Road, a few places around town as a trio. And then Mike Mordecai, along with Joppa, that's when they opened the Elephant. So Mordecai came to me and asked me, he said, I need somebody to play every Sunday night. So he had asked the two of us, Sandy Allen and myself. So we split every Sunday night down at the Elephant. And I think that started in 89. So, or maybe the latter part of 88, I can't remember exactly when. So I played every Monday night by myself as a single. And that went on until we decided, till I decided to, Alex Koch and myself got together, and we decided maybe we should put a group together. AD decided maybe we should put a group together. So that's how that came about. But I started playing at the Elephant Room by myself. And I was me and Sandy Allen. We were the first two pianists to play every Sunday night. You
could probably play Stella by Starlight in all keys and all tempos.
Yeah. Well, I found out that I no longer needed to do that. I could settle for playing it in B flat.
Tell me, Dr. Polk, what does the group Centerpiece, your latest group, I know it's on hiatus now, but what does it mean to you, Centerpiece?
It means a whole lot to me. The guys, well, I started, like I said, I had started the book, and the book stemmed when I had the group, James Polk and Company, already had a 5-piece book. So I just cut it down to 3 and did some of the same arrangements, but arranged it for 3 horns instead of 5 horns, and or 4 horns really. And that was real easy. And especially when the finale came out with the finale program in 1988, 87, I think it was when it first came out. I was one of the first ones to buy it. And I found out that this helped so much in my arranging, and that I could do 1 or 2 a week easy, because I already had the arrangements done. All I had to do was copy the melody and to cut down on the harmony. And instead of 5 horns, use 2 horns. So it was very easy. So it was very quick for me to put together a book for a sextet. So, of course, we played at we played at a place called the Monarch Theater, which was a theater over in the Lincoln Town Center. And what happened there was that place closed down because we stayed there. We started there as a sextet. No, I had a 10-piece group. I'm sorry, I had a 10-piece group, and we played there. And it was so happened that the guy who was the manager of what did I say the name of the group was? The Monarch. I went to him and talked to him because I said, well, can we put a group in here? So he allowed us to do that. And I used different vocalists. I used Pam Hart, I used Tim Curry, and somebody else I used, Valerie Scott, I believe, somebody else. But anyway, that's how that group got started. And so, of course, Mordecai called me and said that they wanted to have a group the first Friday of every month. He was putting groups in there. And they closed the Monarch. So I didn't have that spot anymore. So Mordecai called me and said, we need to put a group in there, and I'll give you every Friday, the first Friday of each month. Can you put a group together? I say, that's no problem. So we did. That's how I got started at the Elephant, the first Friday of each month. And that was in 80? No, when I moved back in 88. So that must have been, I can't remember. We stayed there for at least 10 years, I know, until this pandemic closes. We're still there. And so far, whenever this stuff's over, I hope we'll go back.
And you must enjoy the work you do with Church on Monday as well, Elias and you and Scott and others. How's that?
Absolutely. It's one thing Elias doesn't say, and I can't blame him, that he was a student of mine at Texas State University. He and Freddie Mendoza were students of mine. And one of the requirements of my students, I taught arranging, that they complete an arrangement. And of course, I was much easier on them because they were my preference. So Elias said the story that he tells on Monday night, that I played a few gigs with him around town in Austin. And he knew that I played B3 organ because he had heard me. So he was interested in the group, of course, Stanley Turrentine's group, and of course, Grant Green and Larry Young and that organ sound. He was very interested in that organ sound. So he said he wanted to put a group that included an organ player. So he immediately thought about me. He said, well, maybe we can get Dr. Polk to play B3 organ again. So he called me and asked me, would I consider playing on Monday nights? And I told him, but of course I will. I'm not doing anything on Monday nights for an hour and a half, 90 minutes. I said, shoot, I can do that standing on my head, So that's how that got started. So he went to, I can't think of the guy's name, the owner of the gallery, and proposed to him that we do every Monday night. And the guy bought it. So that's how that got started. That's how I started playing with the group. Thanks to Elias. He called me and asked me if I would do it. And I said, well, of course I will. So that's how that got started. And it gave me a chance to play B3 again. I got a B3 sitting in my house here that I want to sell. It's been sitting here for over 20 years.
Is that the one you bought down? That's not the one you bought down on Congress. That's a different one.
Oh, yeah. That one they had up there was Okay. Very fine jazz organist. I can't think of you. You can tell that my mind ain't what it used to be. But it was a jazz organist. I can't think his name now. But it went out, and then a guy around town that plays a lot of piano in Austin moved his organ up there. So that one is up there now. If you call his name, I know it.
Is that Red?
Who?
Red Young? Is that Red?
No, it's not Red organ. It's another guy. What's the other guy that plays organ here in Austin? I can't think of his name right now.
It's all right.
Mm-hmm. So that's how that got started.
That's amazing. Now I know that you've been doing these arrangements, at least, now you have over 700 of them. After the pandemic, Dr. Polk, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I have so many, and we do different songs each month, and it takes each month, and we have 3 sets, which is an hour and a half long for 90 minutes sets, and we do 3 sets, and so each set we managed to get into maybe 6 or 7 songs per set, so 3 times 7, that's about 21 songs charts that we get up there, and we never do the same ones each week. We change up and do the different. So I probably will never get through all of these songs that I got. But like I said, it gives me something to do. It keeps my mind active, and I enjoy doing it.
For sure. Now, I know you've been all over the world. Is there a place that you would really like to still visit that you haven't been, or you would like to go back?
Rio. I'd like to go back to Rio.
Why is that?
Oh, man, if you've ever been to Rio, the people down there are healthy. People get old down there, and they look young. As a matter of fact, when we got to Rio, this is a story I tell, but it's true. We stayed at a hotel about 2 blocks from Copacabana. Copacabana is a beach area. And Rio is the first country that women wore bikinis. And the bikinis were so small, you could fit them in one hand. And the people down there are in such good shape that a 75 or 70-year-old woman would look like them about 20, 25 years old, man. I'm telling you, I just could not believe it, because everybody does the samba. Everybody does it. They dance a lot, and it keeps them young, it keeps them fit. So yes, I would love to go to Rio again.
That's amazing, Dr. Polk. Let me ask you just one more question, if that's okay with you, and I appreciate your time. Having been in Austin, for your life, and being such an amazing, respected teacher and musician, what would you like to say to the Austin jazz community, or to people learning about Austin, about your lessons and things that we could learn from your experiences?
Well, to musicians, I would say, keep doing what you're doing, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime deal. Everybody that loves music, and I applaud them and appreciate them, because they're doing what they want to do. And it's hard to make a living as a musician, because people do not see music and musicians as a musician sees music and musicians. People enjoy music. They support music if they like it. But if you do it, don't do it for the sake of just making money. Do it for the sake of if it makes you feel good and if you enjoy doing it. And I'm sure that's the reason why a musician becomes a musician, because they enjoy the music. It's something that keeps you fit. It's something that you enjoy doing. And it's a thing that very few people get a chance to do in their lifetime. Think of the amount of people that are out there working 9 to 5 every day, doing something that just goes against their grain. They're doing it because they have a need to make a living. But a musician is different. I realize that people do not, if you're not a musician, you don't see music as a musician does. Musician sees music as something that's a part of them, a part of their life, a part of their livelihood. So that's how I see music. And the message to musicians is keep on doing what you're doing, and to learn as much about music as you can. To learn to appreciate music. And if you're not a writer, try it. It's so wonderful to be able to create music. Because as I used to tell my students when I worked at Texas State, that everybody has music in their soul. Everybody has rhythm You couldn't walk if you didn't have rhythm. Everybody has rhythm in their soul. And music is in the cosmos. Why do you think a person living in New York will find out that they wrote a song that's very similar to a person that lives in California? And they don't know each other because music is in the cosmos. It's in the cosmos. And I used to tell my students that everybody has an extension cord. And it's up to you to plug into the cosmos. Because how do you think melodies come to you? Because it's in the air. You can hear a melody in the wind. You can hear a melody in the chimes. So music is a part of life. If not, everybody's not going to be a writer, but at least everybody can enjoy music. And a lot of people don't enjoy music, and they really don't know what they're missing. So that's my message. If you like music, keep music alive, one way or the other. Listen to it or create it. You've got two choices. Listen to it or create it.
That's profound, Dr. Polk. Are you optimistic about the future of music?
Oh, yeah. Music will never go away. Music will always be here because there will always be somebody on the planet that's creating music. You know, I would say God has a sense of humor because you can hear music and whistling through the trees. You can hear music. If you go out, you can hear music everywhere. Music is everywhere. So whether you pick up on it or not, whether you say, as my saying is, whether you plug into it or not, is your business. But it becomes even more available and more profound to you if you plug into it. So music is everywhere. Everything makes music. You know, has rhythm, music incorporates melody, rhythm, basically melody, rhythm, and harmony. It's the three things that make music. So those three things, you can make a lot of music with just melody, harmony, and rhythm. And everybody has that. Every living soul had that. Like I say, God had a sense of humor. Whether you take advantage or not is up to you. So take advantage of that. If it were not for music, music is worldwide. Different languages, but music is the common language that everybody understands. Everybody in the world understands. You may not understand the speaking language, but you understand the music. Think about that.
Yep. Preach, man. That's beautiful. I love that we're talking about God towards this part, Dr. Polk. That's good for me. I appreciate it. Is there any other message that you have for the Austin Jazz Society or anybody listening to this interview?
Yeah, go out and support music and musicians, because the musicians have made a choice to make this their livelihood. They cannot make a living without playing music and without people to support it. So support your local musicians. That would be truly wonderful. Thank you so very much.
Dr. Polk, thank you. And with blessings of good health for you and your family, may you continue to thrive with beautiful inspiration. And thank you so very, very much for your wisdom, your perspective, and your time. May you continue to flourish. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Have a blessed day.
You too.